The Supreme Court has put a stay on the Gyanvapi Mosque survey for 2 days, just 4 hours after the survey began this morning. Now, this after the Masjid committee's plea challenging the Varanasi court order was mentioned before the Supreme Court for urgent hearing. The Supreme Court made the point that the petitioners must move the Allahabad High Court before Wednesday, and the High Court also must hear the matter before the status quo order ends. In fact, the Solicitor General also said that no invasive work or excavation work is being carried out, not a brick is being moved, is what he said. Sunil Prabhu and Alok Pandey are joining us live on the broadcast to really give us perspective over this very important story. Going across to you first, Sunil sir, it's very important the points that the Supreme Court made, asking the petitioners to move the Allahabad High Court and also directing, in a sense, the High Court to hear the matter before the status quo order ends on Wednesday. Take us to what really transpired in the court, because the observations made by the court were very important, and also the arguments presented by the Solicitor General.
That's right. It has been quite a to and fro today, this morning, in the Supreme Court after the council, the petitioners, moved the Supreme Court seeking the indulgence. And as they said, that nearly 30 people from 7 o'clock, they have started digging. Making a point that the status quo is being changed. They continuously said that since 1947, nothing has been done. Why this sudden hurry? And it's pointing out that the district court passed an order at 4:30 and giving them little or no time, and they got it from the media, the order of the court. And really no opportunity to go to the Allahabad High Court, explaining that everybody knows what's the situation in the Allahabad High Court, and seeking the Supreme Court's indulgence to stay the order. The Chief Justice of India initially being reluctant, asking the Solicitor General to find out from the ASI what exactly is happening and to report back by 11:15 about what is the real situation in Gyanvapi Mosque complex. And to report back. The Solicitor General reporting back to the CGI at 11:15, saying that not a brick has been moved, and saying very clearly that only radar as well as non-invasive methods are being used to do a survey of the entire complex. Having said that, the Chief Justice of India, along conferring with his other fellow judges, a three-judge bench, deciding to allow status quo and staying the Varanasi district judge's order, asking the petitioners to move the Allahabad High Court, giving them time till Wednesday to move the Allahabad High Court and for the Allahabad High Court to hear the matter, and clearly allowing and saying that no invasive, nothing should be done which will change the present point. Even as the petitioners, the other side, Mr. Shyam Devan, saying that nothing invasive is being done. The Solicitor General also saying that nothing invasive will be done, and there is no need to be, and not wanting that state to be granted. But nevertheless, the Chief Justice of India, along with his other fellow judges, giving that indulgence to the petitioners after, really a nearly 45-minute pleading on this entire an important and communally sensitive issue, not only for the state of Uttar Pradesh, but for the rest of India.
Thanks so much, Sunil sir, for joining us with all those details. Sunil sir is pointing out that that back and forth happened for about 45 minutes, and finally the Supreme Court stayed the survey. And Alok Pandey also joining us from Varanasi. In fact, Alok, how is this order? How is this order of the Supreme Court being perceived by both sides? Because important observations also being made by the Supreme Court, and nothing really changes on the ground so far, except that the survey has been stayed for the next 2 days. But how are both sides, the Masjid committee side and the petitioners, actually perceiving this order by the Supreme Court?
Well, I guess the other way to look at it, Vedant, would be to say that much changes on the ground in terms of the fact that the survey will not be carried out. But again, as you rightly pointed out, this is temporary. It's for 2 days. And now perhaps it's up to the Mosque committee to approach the Allahabad High Court and seek further recourse under the law. Sunil sir has already spoken in detail about the Supreme Court and what it did today. So I'm not going to go and talk about that again. But what I can tell you is to give you a bit of background about why this is happening. So on Friday, the district judge in Varanasi, who is hearing all Gyanvapi related cases, he passed an order saying that ASI mandated survey on the Gyanvapi Mosque complex except the Wazukhana or the pond area will be conducted because that is the swiftest way to get to a quick resolution of this case. Now the case is that 4 women petitioners approached the Varanasi district judge in May this year, basically saying that there should be a scientific survey of the Gyanvapi Mosque complex carried out by the ASI because they believe that the Gyanvapi Mosque was built after raising a Hindu temple. They said that these are claims and these claims can only be substantiated after a survey is carried out. The Mosque committee argued before the district judge's court that any excavation or any such survey would be in violation of the law and also of Supreme Court's orders in the Gyanvapi case over the last year or so. The district judge in his wisdom of course said that the ASI survey should actually happen, and he said that the report should be with him by the 4th of August. Now, as the Mosque committee points out, this order was passed at 4:30 on Friday evening and the survey started at 7 a.m. this morning. There was a security review meeting yesterday because today is Monday. It's an auspicious day for devotees who are going to the Kashi Vishwanath temple. Nevertheless, the survey started with adequate security, lasted for 4 hours and has been suspended, maybe that's a good way to say, for at least 2 days.
Right, Alok, they're reporting from the congested bylanes of Varanasi, very typical of the city. Thanks so much for joining us with all those details. And also joining us on the broadcast now, Kapil Madan, advocate of the Supreme Court, also the national coordinator of the legal cell of the Indian Youth Congress. Also with us, Ashutosh Srivastav, an advocate with the Supreme Court as well. Ashutosh Srivastav, going across to you first. How do you look at this judgment, this order rather, by the Supreme Court of putting a stay on the Gyanvapi Mosque survey for 2 days, also making the point that the Masjid committee and the that side also needs some time to breathe, also directing the High Court to listen to the matter before the status quo order ends. So how do you perceive this entire order?
See, the Supreme Court has basically given an opportunity to the other side to be heard by the Allahabad High Court. They can approach, considering the order which was passed by the district court on 21st of July, where the district court had ordered for the ASI survey. See, this is just an opportunity which has been given. The Supreme Court has not commented anything on the merit of the case.
Absolutely.
Now, the merit of the case has to be heard before the Allahabad High Court. Now, when we consider the previous petition which was filed by the other side, challenging the maintainability of such an application or petition filed by the petitioners before the district court, the Allahabad High Court had rejected that petition, stating that, yes, this petition is very much maintainable. So there is no question about the maintainability of the petition. Now, it is the only issue whether the ASI survey is to be conducted, in what manner it has to be conducted. That is the only issue for which the order was passed by the district court, and then to get an opportunity for this order to be challenged before the High Court, the other side had approached the Supreme Court. So I think there is nothing on the merit of the case.
Right.
But yes, the opportunity has been given to the other side, which I think it is a constitutional right of any opposite party or the aggrieved party in any order to approach the higher authority or the higher court to file an appeal and to challenge the merit of the previous order. But yes, it will depend on now the further merits or what additional arguments they have to make before the High Court, to make their point.
Absolutely, and that it's a very important point there that you're making, that the Supreme Court in a sense has given an opportunity to the Masjid committee to approach the High Court and make their arguments there. Kapil Madan, come in on also this point of how the major takeaway also was that no invasive work or no excavation work must be carried out as far as the Gyanvapi Mosque is concerned. So in a sense, the Supreme Court also acknowledging the apprehensions of the Masjid committee that there could be some damage to the structure of the mosque, to also the wuzu khana, the sealed area. So those apprehensions in a sense acknowledged by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, look, the SG, the Solicitor General, has put it on record that no excavation work or no invasive work will be performed, with the SG also making that point that not a single brick has been moved. So that is also significant, isn't it?
So, Vedant, I will just like to add what Mr. Srivastava said, that the court had earlier said that this petition is maintainable. So the fact, when you have an order wherein the Supreme Court says that the petition is maintainable, so essentially whatever is the exercise which is happening now, it's a fact-finding exercise. And since we are not privy to the exact factual positions, at the side, so I would not be commenting on the factual situation. But yes, any person, aggrieved by any situation, because an inquiry is happening. And if someone has any apprehension for the manner in which this inquiry will happen, of course, that will be heard by the Allahabad High Court, and you will have an order on that. There cannot be any dispute insofar as this position is concerned.
Right, Kapil Madan, important point there. And also, Ashutosh Srivastav, what do you think of this point that was made that, in a sense, the Gyanvapi Mosque survey, I mean, it began early this morning and it was stayed 4 hours after it began. And the Masjid committee made that point of timing, that this is not the right time to conduct the survey because they said that, mere oral evidence is not enough to conduct the survey. What do you think of that argument?
See, they can raise any such issue, but that is, that the court had already taken everything into consideration while passing the order, and the district judge had ordered for the ASI survey, and they had earlier raised that these kind of, the petitions are barred by the Places of Worship Act. But later, as I had also said, that Section 4 of the Places of Worship Act has certain exceptions, and this may fall under the exception to that particular act. And accordingly, the court found it to be maintainable, and it ordered for the ASI survey, because there is another act, Ancient Monuments Act of 1958, and according to that act, if any such a mosque or temple or any place of religious act falls,
right,
then it will not be covered by the Places of Worship Act. And the timing and all, whatever has been raised, I find the court had applied its mind properly, because disturbing the entire survey during the proper daytime when there would be prayers in the mosque and all will not be disturbed.
Absolutely.
So in fact, the court had taken everything into consideration so that the people are not disturbed. And it had also further said that it should not, damage or create any hindrance during the prayers by the Muslims who go and they pray. So I think the court has been very sensitive while passing the order, and it has taken everything into consideration.
Absolutely,
and that's why it had ordered for the morning.
Sort of evident in the observations that the Supreme Court made, that status quo must be maintained, and it also made the SG place on record that it's only photography, measurement work that's going on. Kapil Madan, what do you make of the Varanasi court order? The Varanasi court said that this particular Archaeological Survey of India survey of the Gyanvapi Mosque will, in a sense, help in the speedy disposal of the case, because this is not the first time that the Gyanvapi Mosque is being surveyed. So what do you make of the Varanasi court order?
So Vedant, once the court has decided on the maintainability and said that the suit is maintainable, then the proceeding has to go on. And the natural, logical next step to that order is that the court will, of course, you have, claims and counterclaims from both the sides.
Right.
So these surveys are appointed as, by way of appointing someone as a local commissioner who visits the site, find out exactly what has happened. If there is an expert required, then, any expert person is appointed as a, commissioner. In this case, a scientific body is being appointed to conduct its survey. So I think it's the logical next step. But what the court has to ensure that while doing a survey, as you also and Mr. Srivastava also mentioned, that you need to, remain sensitive, vigilant,
Absolutely.
and you need to ensure that you don't change the character of that place. Because the fact is, if while doing a survey, if you do any change which is fundamental, or which changes the character or the fundamental of that place, then in that situation you will be barred by the Places of Worship Act also. And the fact is that by way of survey you
Absolutely, and
can't change the situation.
That point you were making about how the character of the place of worship should not be changed, and the sensitivities really involved here were all in a sense taken care of by this Supreme Court order. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the broadcast.